Hey everyone, and welcome back to my kitchen. Today I'm going to cook a turkey curry made from ground turkey. A lot of times you know that ground turkey is a little bit on the bland side. It's really good to add some good flavors to that. Today I'm going to add the traditional curry flavors of garlic, ginger, cilantro, a little tomato, onion. It's going to be absolutely fabulous. I think your family's really going to like it. I like to serve this wrapped up in lettuce wrap, but you can serve it over rice. You can put it into a pan and put mashed potatoes on the top and make kind of an Indian flared shepherd's pie. There's lots of different things you can do with it, but I think you're going to like it, so let's get started on it. I'm just going to start by chopping an onion. This is half of an onion because the onion I had was a really big onion. We're going to want about a half a cup, maybe a little more than a half a cup. I'm going to start my pan getting hot. Start it on high heat, and I'm using a good dark, my favorite, cast iron skillet. It's really the one I use for most of my cooking. It's heavy, it's a beast, but I love to use it. It does such a great job. Alright, I cut my onion in about 1/4 inch thick slices, and then I just cut it into cubes. This isn't fancy, but it does the job. Alright, I'm going to get that started while we're waiting for that pan to get nice and hot. We're going to also chop up some garlic. I'm going to use 5 or 6 cloves of garlic. You can choose to use more or less. This is kind of on the more side. You might want to start with 3 good sized cloves of garlic. And this is my frozen garlic that's been sitting out. It's got that kind of funny translucency to it that I've mentioned before, but it's going to cook right up and you won't even know the difference. I'm going to do a little bit finer chop on it. Give it a good mince. I always like nice big chunks of garlic in my dishes, but not everybody does. So give it a good mince. Just make those slices a little bit smaller. Alright, so now we have our garlic and our onion chopped. More chop. Alright. Now my fingers are going to smell like garlic. It's a good smell. Okay. We're going to use that coconut oil again. Coconut oil is a really good pairing with curry. Find my spatula. Doesn't have a lot of flavor. This coconut oil just has a hint of that coconut, kind of an undertone of coconut. I know a lot of people use coconut oil exclusively, but not everybody. I have about a tablespoon. I know it doesn't look like it, but it's about a tablespoon. You can measure it if you need to. Alright, see that pan's nice and hot. I'm going to turn it down just a little bit. Alright, get that coconut oil nice and hot in there. We're going to add those onions that we just chopped right to the pan. You don't want these onions to get really brown. Don't add the garlic yet, not quite yet. Stir it around. Get it nice and coated with that coconut oil. We're going to let that sit in a hot pan, soften up those onions. And then we're going to eventually add this garlic. You don't want to add it too soon because remember, if you cook garlic over high heat for too long, it gets bitter. So save it for a little bit because those onions are going to take a little longer. Alright. Get our cutting board cleaned off a little. Alright, I've prepared some tomatoes. I used fresh tomatoes out of my garden because we're at the end of the season, needed to use some up. They're getting on more on the green side than they are on the red side. As a matter of fact, I've had to go out and pick my tomatoes, and it's kind of a sad day because I have loads and loads of tomatoes that look just like this on my tomato plants out in my garden. But it's October 2nd. A freeze is supposed to come tomorrow, so I think I'm going to have lots and lots of green tomatoes. But the good thing is, it makes excellent fried green tomatoes, and I actually made a batch last night. Everybody loved them. Only can do that with so many green tomatoes. I have made chow in the past, which is a kind of a green tomato chutney, but I think I still have some from the last batch I made, so not quite sure what I'm going to do with all these green tomatoes, but we'll think of something. Okay. Oh, I think I turned that down a little too much. Turn it back up. Nice sizzle. Give it a stir around. It's okay if your onions get a little bit of a brown on them. It's okay. Okay, I'm going to add that garlic right to the skillet. Stir it around. Let it cook a bit with the onions. Alright, so I have about 1.5 to 2 cups of fresh peeled tomatoes here. You can also use a 15-ounce can of prepared tomatoes, you know, diced tomatoes, or even tomato sauce if that's what you have. This is what I have. I wanted to use them up, so it goes great in here. It's all going to cook down and all be a tomato saucy mess anyway, so go ahead and use what you have on hand. Alright, I have my ground turkey. It's been sitting in the bowl, and I kind of like to let it sit because it drains a lot of that excess juice off that makes your ground turkey sometimes get a little soft and mushy textured. So I like to get rid of some of that juice. You can see it in here. We call it juice. Yeah, but you kind of make it a very soft and mushy texture to your turkey, so I like to drain that off. Just drain it into the sink before I put it in. Ground turkey is a little softer than hamburger anyway. I'm just going to put that turkey right into the pan with our onions and our garlic. I have a little over a pound. It's sold in a 20-ounce package. It seems to be very typical of ground turkey. I haven't quite figured out why they sell a little bit heavier packages. Alright. Need to get my wooden spoon. Okay, gotta be careful if you're using a metal handled skillet like this one because it gets hot. Alright, you're just gonna work that turkey, onions and garlic all together. Okay. I'm just going to let that cook. You want to keep working it to break up that turkey as it cooks. You want it the consistency of like a taco filling, you know, kind of a loose crumble. I'm going to turn it up just a little bit. I can tell it needs a little bit more heat now that I've added that turkey to it. It's nice and cold. Keep that going. Alright, let's talk about the typical spices that go in a curry. I've mentioned garlic and onion, and a lot of times when I make a curry, I start with a curry base, and I'll blend up some raw onion and some fresh peeled ginger root and some fresh garlic and maybe some green chilies, jalapenos, serrano chilies, depending on how hot you want it. And I just mix that up and kind of make a sludge out of that. And boy, does that make your eyes water like crazy. But we use that, that's kind of my curry base. And I'll put that in some coconut oil and cook it down in the pan, and then add all the other things that make curries so wonderful. One of the things that is very typical in a curry is turmeric powder. And turmeric powder is often used to color things yellow because it's very yellow. And it doesn't take much. Turmeric, and I'm going to need some cayenne pepper. This curry is Malaysian. And there's curries come from all over the place. There's curries, most of us think of Indian curries, but there's also Thai curries and Malaysian curries, African curries, Middle Eastern curries. The influences of the spices that came out of India and Southeast Asia kind of worked their way all along that spice road and influenced a lot of different cooking. And also, as people have immigrated all around, especially as Indians, meaning continental Indians, have moved and set up shop all around the world, the influences of those wonderful spices have kind of made their way into lots of different cooking. So this is a Malaysian curry, but it will still have your basic onion and garlic, and this one just has a bit of turmeric in it and some cayenne pepper. But I like to add a little bit of my own secret Indian spice blend because I like a little bit more of that. It's not a heat spice, it's a warm, just hard to put your finger on what all the spices and herbs are that make this curry. But I put a whole bunch of dried stuff together and make my own curry blend. And it's kind of based on several different types of curry blends that I've used. But I've had big quantities of each individual spice and herb. So I said, you know what, instead of getting these out every single time I want to make a curry, I'm just going to make a good basic curry blend. Now you can buy curry blends all over the place. Just down at the grocery store, it's usually yellow, it just says curry powder on it. That's actually, to say curry powder, curry just means a whole bunch of spices and herbs mixed together. It could be really different from one curry powder to another. So to say that you have just one kind of curry powder in your cupboard, that may not be the kind that you might like best. So go out and try different kind of curry powders out there. There's so many great spice shops out there. It's kind of I hope it's not a fad, but we see little spice shops cropping up all over the place, at least in this area. And I have a couple of favorites, and one is a national spice shop, and the other one's a very regional spice shop. And they're very different for what they have. You think about spices and you say, how many different spices could there possibly be, and how many different kind of spice blends? And that's like saying how many different kinds of musical compositions can there be from just the 88 notes that we have on the piano. And we all know that infinite combinations of notes and rhythms and tempos and beats and all that kind of stuff makes music so colorful, and spices and herbs is what makes our cooking so vibrant and colorful. So in my Indian blend, it has coriander, which is the seed of the cilantro plant, but it's a whole different spice, has a whole different flavor to it. They're little round brown balls. I just grind those up. So it's got coriander, and it has some garlic powder in it, and powdered ginger, and cumin, and red chilies, which I used cayenne pepper, and a little cinnamon, brown mustard seeds, cardamom, cloves, fennel, fenugreek. That's a very typical Middle Eastern spice. It's wonderful. Ajwain. Now, maybe a lot of you have never heard of ajwain. And ajwain has, it's kind of like a celery seed. It looks like celery seed, has a little bit of that kind of flavor. But what it is traditionally used for is to counteract the discomforts, you know what I mean, that often come from eating vegetable-based and bean-based diets. So they've kind of put that in there, and it's a natural reducer of that kind of stuff. And then it has anise in it, which is a licoricey kind of flavor, but just a hint, you can't even tell when it's all blended in there. Some dried cilantro, which is completely different tasting than fresh cilantro, so I really like to use fresh cilantro, but of course in my dry mixes, you can't put fresh cilantro in there, so I use the dried cilantro in my blends, and then a bay leaf. And I put it in a blender, or you can put it into a coffee grinder that hasn't been used for coffee, and grind them all together and make your own curry blend. And it's just out of this world. I can't tell you. It just transports me back to the time when we lived in the Middle East, going to the spice markets and just getting that rush of smells that when you walked into the spice markets, there's just baskets all over the floor and just colors and the aromas, and it's just awesome. And this is what this smells like in a bottle. Okay, I am going to take, and I put about a tablespoon of my spice blend in here. And it doesn't have a whole lot of heat to it, so I'm going to add just a little bit of cayenne pepper. Now, this is to taste. A little goes a long way. I'm not going to use any extra turmeric because I think I have enough turmeric in here. If I think I need a little bit more color, it doesn't add a whole lot of flavor, but it adds a rich golden yellow color. I'm going to give that a turn. It's smelling really wonderful around here. Yum. Okay, you can see that there's no fat on that turkey. I buy the extra lean turkey, ground turkey breast, which is even a little less flavorful than ground turkey that has the dark meat ground into it. But we'll take care of that with all of this good stuff that we're adding back into it. Okay, you know what? I think I am going to add just a little bit of turmeric to it because I think it needs a little punch of that yellow color. And just a little goes a long way. Alright, I'm going to add those tomatoes. See that yellow? See that yellow coming through? And that is that traditional curry color. It comes from turmeric. Wonderful. Alright, put your tomatoes in there. Oh, how'd I get that? Where's my wooden spoon? Alright. Whatever tomatoes you're using, if you're using fresh or canned or sauce, if you're using sauce, you're going to be done real quick. You just need to stir it around and heat it through. Alright. Just let those tomatoes cook down a little bit. We're going to cut up some potatoes. Now, I like to cut up, we're going to use about a half a pound of potatoes. Doesn't have to be exact, just kind of a measurement to give you there. Okay, I've peeled these potatoes. These are the Yukon Gold style potatoes. You can use whatever potato you happen to have. Okay, it's not picky in this. I like to cut it in a rather small dice, okay, no more than a 1/4 inch, because we want it to cook up kind of quick. We don't want big chunks in here that take a long time. And if I'm using it for a lettuce filling, a lettuce leaf filling, so I want it to be smaller. I don't want big chunks of potatoes. But if I was making this to go over rice or more like a stew, I would leave my potatoes more chunky if I was serving it on the side. But because I want to wrap mine up in lettuce leaves, I'm going to cut my potatoes smaller. Alright, so you choose how you want to cut your potatoes. Alright. You can just add them to the pan as you get them cut. Get them cooking. And we're going to add some salt to this. Potatoes need some salt when they're cooking. Give them nice flavor. most people always have a potato. And even if they're starting to grow a little bit, you just pluck those eyes off. Just scrape that right in. Right off there. Cut up a couple more. If you don't want to use potatoes, you don't have to put potatoes. If you're on a no potato kind of diet, leave them out. But potatoes act as a wonderful meat extender in your dishes. So if you have a large family, or you want leftovers, or you're feeding a crowd, or whatever, you can make that package of turkey go farther by adding potatoes. Little trick. Potatoes, you know, quite a bit cheaper than meat, but filling nonetheless. Okay. Alright, that is looking good. Just stir that around. Turn it down just a bit. You know, I can tell that my pan is a little drier than I'd like it to be. If you've used canned tomatoes, you probably have some juice down at the bottom. But my fresh tomatoes are not giving off the juice I want them, so I'm going to add a little bit of water. Just a little bit. Probably like a half a cup or so. Give it a stir. Alright, we also want to get some salt in there. Alright, let's go with 2 good pinches, probably 3 good pinches of salt, equal to about, probably half to a 3/4 teaspoon of salt. Okay, you want to put the lid on this and let it simmer just until those potatoes are done. Nice and soft. You don't want them to get mushy. Just stick a fork in them and see if they're nice and fork tender. Alright, I'm going to turn this heat down a bit. Now is a good time to give that broth just a little bit of a taste for salt. Excellent. Alright, I'm going to put the lid on this. Turn it down to low. Make sure I don't go put my flame out. Alright, we're going to let that cook. Probably about 10 minutes. Should do the trick. Those potatoes will be nice and soft. Then we'll add the finishing touches to it. So we'll see in about 10 minutes. Okay, it's been cooking for about 10 minutes, so I'm going to check it. Make sure I use my towel. The lid is hot and it's heavy. Alright. Okay, you can see that a lot of that liquid is cooked down, and this is just how it should be. Not totally dry, but no soupiness either. Okay, at this point, just go ahead and test your potatoes, make sure they're nice and soft. You're also going to want to give it a taste. You want to adjust the seasonings here, and you want it to be a little bit on the stronger spice side than what you might like, because we're going to add some cream or yogurt to finish this, and it's going to cut down on some of that spice. I'm going to go ahead and just turn off my flame. Adjust your seasoning, adjust your salt, and then we're going to finish this. Normally I would use some plain yogurt. I usually always keep some good Greek yogurt on hand, but lo and behold, my Greek yogurt was gone. I was shocked. But it's always within our grasp to find something that is going to take the place of yogurt. Well, usually. If you have milk or some milk product, you can make a good substitute for yogurt, unless you want that really thick base. Then you'll have to use yogurt. But if you have sour cream, you could put sour cream at this point to finish it off. You want a little bit of tartness to it and mellow out the spiciness of that curry blend that you used, or the peppers that you used. I don't have sour cream. I didn't have yogurt, but I did have some heavy cream. And I just added a little bit of lemon juice to it to thicken it up a little bit, curdle it just a little bit, and give that sour bite that I'm looking for. So I have 4 tablespoons. Whatever you're going to use 4 tablespoons, whether it be yogurt or sour cream, or in my case, some cream with lemon juice. You don't want this to be over heat, because it will curdle and separate and not look nice at all. All right, so you're just going to mix that in. Just kind of finishes it off, gives it a little bit of creaminess. I haven't tried this with a soy-based product, and usually they're a little bit sweet. So if you have a intolerance to anything dairy, including yogurt, which I'm sorry for you, but if you do, you can leave this out. It'll still be absolutely great. Okay, the last thing we want to add is some fresh cilantro. Now, fresh cilantro is one of those things that is hard to keep around. It has a very short shelf life in the refrigerator. It's not like parsley. It can't hold up. It turns slimy, brown, and gross quite quickly. Even if you prepare it and wash it and dry it, put it in a baggie with a paper towel, it still doesn't last very long. But what you can do if you want to use fresh cilantro, and I highly recommend it because you just can't get that same flavor with dried cilantro, and you'll miss it if you leave it out. But you know, some people don't like cilantro, so you can leave it out. But I love cilantro. But what you can do is you can take your fresh cilantro, just get it at the grocery store, get a couple of good bunches of it, and chop it up. Take all the stems off, wash it, dry it, and then chop it up. And then mix it with some salt and put it in the freezer. You can put it in baggies or a sealed, covered, freezable container, and keep it in there. And whenever you need some fresh cilantro, you can pop the lid off of that or open up the bag and just scoop some out that you need. Okay, this is done. So I think we need to taste it. Always taste it. Don't need to have a hoity-toity spoon here. Just use what's already dirty. It's hot. Yep. What I like about this particular curry is it's not anything like the curries that you're going to find at your Indian restaurant. It's much different. So if your family says, I hate curry, I just don't like it, give this one a try. I think you might be surprised that everyone will really enjoy this dish. Now again, you can put this over rice, or at this point you can even serve it like it is with some flatbread. That would be wonderful. But the way I like to serve it is I take a nice sturdy lettuce leaf. This is just some green leaf lettuce that I've washed and dried, and I just take some. When I serve it at dinner, I'll take a small bowl of it on the side or put a pile of it on the side of the plate, and then I just build some lettuce wraps out of it. If you have some extra cilantro, then you just roll up and take a bite. And wow, is this good. Now that is out of this world.